Today we are here to make some peanut butter cookies, but these aren't just any old peanut butter cookies, these are vegan peanut butter cookies. So if you have a lactose allergy or if you don't like eating animal-based products, then these cookies are for you. It's a very easy recipe and you can see the ingredients laid out in front of you. So let's start there. You will need 200 grams of white sugar, as well as 50 extra grams for rolling your dough. You will need 112 grams of vegan butter. Very carefully, you have to select your vegan butter because you can't just use Solo or any old plant-based margarine because some of those still contain lactose. So make sure that it's certified vegan. We need 250 grams of smooth salted peanut butter. Now, I'm a bit of a rebel, so I got chunky salted peanut butter because I love chunky peanut butter. But of course, the recipe calls for smooth, so we'll see how that goes. You also need 15 milliliters of vanilla extract. You need 190 grams of all-purpose flour. You need 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. That's the 5 milliliter measuring spoon. You need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's the 2.5 milliliter measuring spoon. And finally, you might need 1 to 3 tablespoons or 15 to 45 milliliters of soy milk, depending on how your cookie dough comes together. So in just a second, we'll get started with the process of making our delicious vegan peanut butter cookies. So now we begin the process of mixing up our cookie stuff. So first things first, we need to cream the vegan butter and the sugar. So I'm going to use my trusty spatula. I'm going to put the biggest portion of sugar. Remember, this is a smaller portion of sugar that we need to set aside for a little while. We need to take the bigger portion of sugar, pour that into the bowl of our mixer. And yes, the recipe would like us to use a mixer for this, but you can use a hand mixer with beaters, or you can use a big mixer like mine with the paddle. And then we've got to add our butter. And the nice thing about vegan butter is it's always nice and soft, so we don't need to microwave it or anything. Now we are going to cream this for about 2 minutes or so. Starting at a low speed and then kicking it up to about medium. Awesome. So now that we have creamed our butter and our sugar, we are going to add our peanut butter and our vanilla, and then we're going to mix those in. Now peanut butter is going to be good and sticky, and since I'm going to use the whole jar, I'm just going to take as much out of the jar as I possibly can with my spatula. Ooh, he's sticky peanut butter. Almost done. This is not a very oily peanut butter, which is actually really good for our recipe. It does mean, though, that we'll probably end up needing that soy milk at the end. But we shall see. So there's all my peanut butter, nice and clean. And now I also need to add my vanilla extract at this point. And then we're going to mix again, starting on low, working our way to medium until everything is mixed together really nicely. Now is a good time to scrape because it's very likely that the butter and sugar on the side of the bowl didn't mix completely with the peanut butter, so we got to make absolutely sure. It's looking pretty good. Get the bottom too. Next step is to mix the dry ingredients together, just like we have with some of our other baked goods. So I've got here my salt, my baking powder, and my baking soda all in the same little dish, and I've dumped them into my flour. And I'm going to use my spoon to mix all of those up very nicely. Now, we are going to mix this by hand. We actually don't want to use the mixer to put in our dry ingredients, which means I've got to clean off the paddle and detach the bowl and get us a bigger spoon. And we don't want to waste any cookies, so let's get all the cookie dough off the paddle. Do, 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 do. All right, that looks pretty clean to me. Always take your dishes away and make sure your workstation stays clean. Now, I'm going to use my spatula to do my mixing because it's the bestest tool in the whole kitchen. So we'll take this off here. And now we're going to add these dry ingredients. Boop, 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 boop. And we're going to mix it up really nicely. Making sure that we get all the way to the bottom and all the way to the sides of the bowl. This is looking a little bit on the dry side, so I have a feeling we're going to be adding some milk. Now when we do that, we are only going to add 1 tablespoon at a time. We can add up to 3 tablespoons to make sure that our cookies come together. So that's pretty well mixed, but it's still probably too dry to roll into a ball, which is what we're going to do with our cookies. So here's how we test. We take a ball of dough about the size we want our cookie, usually about 1 inch, and see, it'll stay in a ball, but watch what happens. When I press it down, it's still a little bit crackly. We won't need a lot of soy milk, but when it crumbles like this, we do need some. So what I have is I have our soy milk here, and I have a tablespoon or 15 milliliter measurement. And I'm just going to add 1 tablespoon at a time and then mix that in and see what happens. And if it's not quite wet enough, we'll go again. I feel like we just so close that I'm not quite sure. I think it could probably use 1 more. The other thing you can do, guys, by the way, of course, because we've washed our hands, is we can go at this with our hands, which might even be a little easier. Rawr. Actually, it kind of reminds me of the tortilla dough we made in the other video. So it's starting to look really, really nice. It still feels a little bit too dry to me, though. So I think we're going to do 1 more tablespoon of soy milk. So let's do that. Let's put in 1 more tablespoon. Ooh, I splashed a little, but that's okay. All right, get ready for the goo. We will have to preheat our oven to 190 degrees Celsius, which should only take about 10 minutes. So that means that if you turn your oven on right now, then it will probably be ready for your cookies to go in. And indeed, I think I need to turn mine on because we still have to roll the cookies, roll them in sugar, and then press them out with a fork. All right, so this is now a lot wetter. It's looking pretty good, but I want to make absolutely sure that I've got 1 ball of dough. So I'm still scraping up bits and pieces, but that is looking just about right. Cool. So the next thing that you have to have in order to make this work is you've got to have a clean workspace. So we have to get the milk over here. We're going to bring our sugar back. I'm going to clean up these dishes and put them over to the side. We got to have our sugar. We got to have our dough. And we have to have a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. And by lining the cookie sheet with parchment paper, we make sure that our cookies won't stick. So there we go. Now what we're going to do is determine how big we want our cookies to be. For me, I always make cookies that are about this big. It's about 1 inch. Unfortunately, because I'm American, that's a little bit tough, but maybe 2 centimeters, 2.5. Just like this, kind of like a little golf ball. And then we roll in the sugar. Roly, roly, roly. And we set it down on the tray. I would say we'll probably be able to put 12 cookies on this tray. All right, I told a little untruth. Unfortunately, I only got 9 cookies on the tray. But that's okay. So now it's time for the thing that makes a peanut butter cookie a cookie, the fork squish. We want to do on each cookie, once up and down, once left and right. Guys, we are going to bake these for about 15 minutes or until they are golden brown on the top. Some ovens are going to be a little bit different, so you'll have to just keep watching the cookies as closely as you can. We'll see you in about 15 minutes. Well, it looks to me like we have finished peanut butter cookies. So I did bake these for 16 to 17 minutes. I like my cookies a little bit bigger, and so they took just a little bit longer to bake. We don't want to touch them now because a vegan cookie is a little bit more delicate than a normal cookie with no eggs in it. So we have to let them sit and let them calm down, and then they will become crispy and delicious in probably 5 to 10 minutes, which is when we can take them off of our cookie tray. So enjoy your vegan peanut butter cookies.